Hey, good morning everyone. Frank Valkyrie here in Amsterdam. It's a rainy Tuesday morning. It's been like this for 3 days in a row. Now it's getting better. So I thought, why not sit down and do a little video? I got quite excited about Infinity War, the Avengers. I already watched 2 times. So I thought, let's sit down and explore some of the concept and philosophy of the main character, Thanos, which I really enjoyed actually as a character, as a villain, quite layered and interesting. Probably one of my favorite in the last 20 years. The other two being one of the top three. The other two being the Agent Smith in The Matrix, and then the Joker, of course, in The Dark Knight. And I'm just talking of science fiction, of course. So yeah, I just wanted to explore this philosophy of Thanos of wanting to save not only humanity but the universe, apparently, by offing the population everywhere. And that alone, it's already a silly endeavor to take on, because we have to assume that Thanos knows the extent of the universe and how much souls or creatures there are all over it. And that seems a little bit like kind of weird that he has that kind of knowledge, because even though it's an eternal being, I don't know exactly how old it is, or if he had even time to explore all of the universe. Sometimes we hear him talk about galaxy, which is quite different than referring to the universe. A galaxy is big, but the universe is something else. So he assumes that the only way to ensure that life can thrive everywhere is to reduce population. And of course, this is more of a concept, ideal, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, that refers more to us on planet Earth. Of course, this thing was written by people with our own limitation of the imagination. So it has to resonate more with our worries that we have here on this planet of overpopulating and the problem that could arise from it, than like venturing out somewhere in the distance talking about deities and their problems and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, I thought it's a funny thing to talk about it a little bit and see what you think, and see how could have been solved in a different way, presenting that different solutions. Personally, I find it like from a human point of view kind of silly, thinking that by reducing the population you actually solve anything, because there are studies showing that actually if you probably do that, you might increase even faster to that same point again sooner. Like you will reach the point where the planet reaches the limitation of its own capacity to feed everyone, basically, even faster. So at a certain point you have solved the solution, you have solved the problem for a period of time, and then again it will represent itself, so you have to snap the finger again, kind of thing. And so that doesn't really present the solution, more like you postpone it and then you have to redo it cyclically. And it would be just better to let things take their own direction, like it happened, like the universe, like nature, and it's nature everywhere, of course, will take care of itself, good or bad, without bringing in your own morality, because we take in the morality and understanding of a human being, of our trying to preserve our own existence and our fears, and avoiding pain and avoiding danger and all that kind of stuff that it's inherent to the human form. But the universe doesn't have the same concerns and could be even more ruthless than Thanos is. I give you an example. Like tomorrow a super volcano could explode, and it's not going to ask you your permission, and it's not concerned on how the state of the economy of the planet is, or how well certain people are treated, or in integrity or inclusivity, whatever you want to talk about. Nature is not concerned with those things. So tomorrow a volcano is going to blow up and cover the planet in ashes, and a third of the population or 3/3 of the population will suffer. Everything existing, and has happened before, could happen again. So that alone shows how nature is not so concerned. It's concerned in the long run with life, but not with you and me to begin with. So in that perspective, the ideals of Thanos then don't seem so ruthless if you consider that, you know, like a meteorite, accidental meteorite, basically created like extinction of most of the living creature on this planet. And you could imagine that probably if there's planets with life, similar things have happened everywhere else. And that's pretty dramatic because we cannot relate so much to dinosaurs now, of course, because of past 65 million years, and we don't have a sort of too much empathy for giant lizards just killing one another and chewing each other's off alive. But that could happen also in a society where we're living in. It could happen, maybe down the line in 10,000 years or 5,000 years or who knows what. It could happen again, and they will not ask permission. And if we are not prepared or we don't have the means to avoid that, it would just happen. That's how strangely ruthless life is, nature is. So in that respect, Thanos has his own beliefs, his own understanding of reality. And we have also to assume that by being an eternal being, he might even have the same issues that humans have, like regarding life and death. Because if he's always been alive, how does he know what's after death? We have to assume that probably he asks himself the same questions. You know, like what's being alive, what's being dead, what's being non-conscious biologically? Is there like life after non-biological life? Am I still going to be aware? This being eternal in thoughts, the soul, so to speak. So it might have even the same concern that we have. But the most interesting aspect, and what I think is the silliest part of his plan, is the fact that in order to achieve this goal, he wants to acquire, and he acquires, spoiler ahead, all the stones, all those 6 stones, and those stones alone contain incredible power. Those stones are capable of interfering with what we understand of the physical laws, and they can just morph and change and adapt to the will of the bearer. And that alone, it's the most controversial aspect of this whole story, because already few of the stones that have possible skills, capacity that will prevent his plan to take place if used correctly. I don't know the extent of the power of the time stone, for instance, but you clearly see that this stone is capable of wind up time. So if you're really so concerned with overpopulation and you are the stone bearer, you could just wind up time back to a period where the universe is less populated, and instead of killing everyone, you just wind up the clock and you do it every 5 billion years or something, and it's less painful than just killing everyone or half of the population. So that alone, of course, it's a main point of conflict in terms of the story, and also the reality stone. If you can change reality, you can just, with the stone, you can just change the reality of famine, of anger, of suffering into one of joy and abundance. So already those 2 stones could solve all the problems without having to carry on such a dramatic and violent plan. Of course, the story, it's created by people and it's meant to resonate more with us and our worries here, right here on planet Earth, of our own overpopulation and the consumption of resources that we probably will have to confront. We're already confronting the overproduction and pollution and the plastic in the ocean and fossil fuel and the soy that is produced all around the world to feed cattle instead of people. And I share an anecdote with you. I learned that for the first time when I was 22. I worked on cargo ships, and I remember going in Canada. I worked on bulk carrier, and we both carried like coal from one place to another, and then we washed those holds. I don't even want to know the damage. I felt like a miner going down those holes and having to spray them because you have to clean them at the best way possible, because then you have to carry soy that goes to feed animals, cattle. I don't even know if some of that soy went to feed people, create tofu. I don't even want to know, because I'm sure that there are traces of coal and other crap ending up on the soy. But that's what we did. We washed the hulls from coal. I remember at the time we went to Canada, we carried soy, we brought back to Europe, and all this soy went, you know, feeding cattle that then becomes beef sticks and so on and so forth. So we know for a fact nowadays that there is the lack of resources in certain areas is political, it's economical, and not so much because there's lack of resources. It's the distribution of the resources that it's kept in the control of who controls the shipments and economy and the trading that affects areas. We all know that. So our concern is more with also the political power, or how politics is shaping up our future and our world and where we're heading. Because as you see, the more we go on, there's a more of a gap in between the normal folks and those that end up entering the circle of the elitists that control the planet. It becomes harder and harder for normal folks to become like a congressman, for instance, everywhere in the world. Entering into politics, it's complicated, it requires money, it's difficult, and that sort of circle becomes narrower and narrower. And you see it also, for instance, in the States, where families, they start to take over. I mean, it's in the States for the past like 30 years, you've had a couple of families being there a couple of times, without saying any names, but you know where I'm heading at. So that alone shows also the concern where politics could go and how it could further shape our world when people of power will have their own ideals and philosophy, like Thanos, what they will think it's necessary for the planet to thrive. So to me, Thanos is just a transposition of what our fears are in our world and what could happen potentially when somebody becomes the Thanos of the world, you know, like the person that has the most power to make the decisions. So in that respect, it's fascinating to see that, because I think Thanos is more of a earthly character than a universal one, that like like a godly figure. It's more of the potentiality of what could happen on Earth if politics becomes more and more an elitistic affair than a communication between us normal folks and who has to make the decisions. So anyway, it's just a little bit of fun conversing about the behind the scene of the ideology and the philosophy in the movie of the main character. I really like Thanos, great villain. I like his sorrow, I like his motives, even though they're heel, of course. They're motives which they are brought on by probably a misunderstanding of life and the value of life. And especially if you have that much power and all those stones, you could use it in a different way. I mean, species which they know how to travel through space and they have infinite energy, I'm sure they know how to reverse engineer, terraform, and solve problems without having to decimate populations. Even though a ban on birth, it's not nice either, like they do in China, but still, like trying to slowing down people from being born at all, it's still less savage and violent than actually killing who is alive. So even that could be a better solution to slow down a little bit the effect. But you know, the most funny part is that having that gauntlet probably gives that person the possibility to solve all the problems in a different manner, but for the sake of the story, for the drama of the character that is faulted, that is has his own issues, and his own issues are expressed through this heel ideology, that's the only reason why it probably happens. So anyway, and a little bit of fun, just flowing, because I'm just making it up as I go. You know, I'm just making this up as I go. I'm just curious to know what you think and how you think about it and how you would have solved if you had such power in your hands, and what you think about the character. I really enjoyed it, and I'm probably going to go to the movie again to enjoy it another time, just to taking in the details this time. And yeah, that was fun. I hope you find this entertaining, and I'll see you next video. Take care.